What's up, everyone, and welcome to this unboxing of this 1998 Kenner JLA figure of Green Lantern Kyle Rayner. The front of the package says Justice League of America as well as Green Lantern. This is box-style packaging, however there is a front window that allows collectors to see the figure. The JLA logo is on the bottom of the package. On the top of the package, we get a partial window with the logo. And the side of the package features this dynamic artwork of Kyle Rayner. The back of the package features a brief description of Kyle Rayner. I'll put close-up shots of this at the end of the video if you would like to read them. The figure comes with a total of 3 accessories. Here is the Construct ammunition belt, and later on in the video I'll show you how to put this on the Construct gun accessory. Here is the Construct gun, and the sculpting on this is very intricate. You can see that regardless of the angle. I've never seen a weapon that looks quite like this, so I like how unusual the Construct is. The barrel is very large, and this translucent material works well for these accessories. Case in point, here is Kyle's very unique personal power battery, and the detail on this is stunning. I do wish that there were something in the middle to denote energy in the battery, but I really can't complain about anything outside of that. This feels like very hard rubber, and you can see that there's some movement with the handle. And in all 3 cases, I think that it's easy to see that this material is perfect for representing hard light constructs. And here is my favorite DC character. It is Kyle Rayner, free of the box and ready to rumble. This figure is certainly a product of its time. There are areas that obviously could have used improvement. However, there is a great deal to appreciate about this figure, so let's have a closer look at the loose details now. Here's a look at the lower body, and one of the first things that you'll notice about the figure is that it is disproportionate. The legs are a little stumpy. Although I really do like this green plastic that they used for the boots. The stamp is on the bottom of the foot, and I definitely approve of that. It's not an eyesore. The black sections of the costume are cloth, and in several areas on this figure, the stitching is very haphazard, and you can see that back here in the hip area. But the lower body on my figure is balanced well, so I have to give Kenner credit for that. Here's a look at the torso, and the costume itself is actually more accurate than the costumes on many modern Kyle Rayner figures. You can see the original Darryl Banks design, and the fact that the white section goes all the way around to the back. This is how Kyle's original costume is supposed to look. However, the stitching back here is very sloppy. And that goes for the top of the white section on the front of the costume as well. And I also wish that Kenner would have used a slimmer torso for this figure. Here's a look at the arms, and I'll give Kenner credit for trying to replicate the gauntlets that Kyle wears. However, they look very stubby, especially in comparison to the rest of the arms, which are very buff. You can see just how thick the biceps and triceps are. The figure does have a gripping hand to hold the personal power battery as well as the gun. The cloth costume really limits the arm articulation on this figure, and I'll talk more about that later in this video. But for now, let's have a look at the ring. The ring is certainly an area of strength for this figure in terms of both size and sculpting as well as paint application. Unfortunately, the fingers look plastic and cartoonish in the way that they're shaped. However, the ring itself is magnificent. The paint application is very precise, the size of the ring makes it very attention-grabbing, and the Green Lantern symbol is very clear. I wish that all Green Lantern rings on Green Lantern figures could be executed as well as this one was. Here's a look at the head sculpt, and it's definitely a mixed bag. It's too large for the body, and the skin looks plastic. However, I do like how the mask was executed overall. It's a little oversized, but it is accurate to the Darryl Banks design overall, and I appreciate the white eyes as well. Here's a look at the head sculpt in profile. The hair has been executed pretty well. I wish that it were a little longer. However, for a figure that came out 27 years ago, this is quite impressive. Looking at the head sculpt from different angles, you can see just how exact the paint applications are. I think it would be pretty easy to make the mouth and the skin look more realistic if you're a customizer. It's pretty simple to put the personal power battery into the gripping hand, and the figure will hold this accessory. The gun is a little more difficult. It's not a perfect fit within the hand, and obviously it's very large, so it needs to be positioned properly for the figure to hold this. It's also possible to pose the figure with the gun in its hand with the barrel facing downward. There are 2 notches on the side of the gun accessory, and you simply work the ends of the ammunition belt into the gun, as you can see here. Again, I would like to emphasize that this figure is 27 years old, so use caution when doing any kind of posing. There are no ankle joints, however, there are hinge joints in the knees, and they can articulate to this angle. I certainly wouldn't push them any further, but you can get the figure into a running pose, as you can see. There's no quadriceps swiveling, however, the figure does have quite an impressive spread, so it's possible to do a deep side kicking pose with this figure. The figure can step back, and it's possible for the figure to kick forward this far. That is quite impressive for an older figure. As you can see, there's a moderate amount of crunching and swiveling with the torso. The torso feels pretty stiff, so be careful when manipulating that area. There's rotation at the wrists, single jointed elbows. The costume bunches at the elbow when that joint is articulated, as you can see. I do wish that there were better movement in this area. The shoulder joint on this arm moves out from the torso this much, and I was a little surprised by that. As I mentioned earlier, due to the costume, it's not possible to do a 360 with the arm unless you want to risk damaging these seams, and I certainly would not advise that. This arm feels stiffer than the other one, especially when it comes to the shoulder joint. It really doesn't move except for going forward and backward. The head sculpt is also very limited in its articulation. The figure can look side to side, but that is the extent of the movement. It does not move up or down, and there is no head tilting. It's still possible to find this figure for around $30, which should be appealing to some Green Lantern collectors. And if you decide to pick up this piece for your Green Lantern collection, I certainly wish you happy hunting. Make sure to check out the rest of my Green Lantern reviews, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. I would certainly appreciate it. And I'll be back with more Green Lantern content soon. But until we meet again, this has been the Emerald Enthusiast, and thanks for watching.